Hello dear learners, hope you are doing well. Let me continue the discussion on motives that I have started in the previous session. So I was discussing about the concept of motives in relation to the work of Anthony Downs, and therein I introduced the category of the officials driven by self-interest and category of officials driven by the mixed motives. So in the previous session, I talked about that there are complex set of goals which these officials they want to accomplish, and these set of goals they have different elements such as gaining prestige, power, income, looking for security, convenience, loyalty towards policy or institution. Some of the elements which the Downs have mentioned in the paper. So in the previous session, we have covered two categories, climbers and conservers as the officials who are driven by self-interest, in terms of their motives, that their motive is to, fulfill their self-interest, and hence their efforts also, will be inclined towards fulfilling those motives there, right? Let me continue the discussion on the officials driven by mixed motives as per the discussion in the paper of Downs. Now, the people who are categorized as mixed motive officials, they are zealots, advocates, and statesmen. Right? These people focus on both the goals, self-interest as well as the interest of the organization and the society that they work in. For society they work for, right? The aspect of altruism, helping behavior also, becomes the part of their, the motives. So it's not only about self-interest. In addition to self-interest, they also have the motive of helping others, benefit of the organization and society at large, right? Wherein in classic comparison, we have seen that the officials who are driven by self-interest, they give much more importance to the self, benefiting the self rather than their organizations. These mixed motive officials, they give importance to both the self as well as the organization and the society they work for. Let us look into the categorization, and the characteristics of these administrators. Zealots, as per Anthony Downs, is basically these are the officials which are more inclined towards specific policy, right? They people have loyalty towards specific policy or a program, right? And their loyalty, because they are more inclined towards some program or policy, so their loyalty towards these programs are also very, very high. They look forward to work for these policies. They actually continue to put in efforts to do very good and gain resources, gain power to take care of the policy and the programs, right? So what they will do is to achieve this, to fulfill this motive, they are motivated to gain power within and outside the organization, right? And also for both themselves as well as for the organization. So they will build, they will rely on the network. They will try to establish, the context which can give them more power, right? They will form the group. These zealots are also known for their also, the charisma, their personality, wherein they will gain power from the group, and then that's how this motive of personal as well as the organization benefit serves their purpose, and hence their efforts to, in a motivation behavior to do work, right? Then comes the advocates. So these people, these officials are more inclined towards, public policies and the program or the organizations. These people, they actually focus on promoting or defending their choices in terms of agencies, public policy or the program, right? These people, as it now indicates, advocates, they will be more defending their choices in terms of what programs or what policies they are preferring, right? So they hold on to this situation. So their entire focus, their motive is to defend the kind of policy and the programs that they are inclined towards, right? So officials more inclined towards the various public policy programs or organizations, and they will continue to defend or promote the agency's policy and programs, right? Then comes the statesmen. Now these officials, they have a strong loyalty towards the society at large. These people, they have strong loyalty towards the society at large, but they also look for power, and prestige for self as well as for benefiting the society, as per the characteristics mentioned by Downs, right? So these people, what they do is they derive motivation. How they will derive motivation? From having influence on the crucial public policy and programs, right? So their involvement in the, or their loyalty towards some organization or the agency's policy program will derive a lot of motivation, because for them it is very, very crucial, and these policy programs have a lot of influence, and they also get prestige and power because of that, and for themselves as well as for their organization, right? Now if you look at the discussion that we have just made, that we say that motives, what is this entire discussion on the categorization of the administrator by the paper of Downs I have made here, just to tell you that how different motives, right, put in different kind of influence in the minds of the people to direct their efforts, right? For example, somebody having different motives will have different means to achieve the outcomes. Let's take an example of a public service official who have a motive of helping others, right? Even if the organization in which he or she is working, even if that organization doesn't allow in terms of rules and regulation, but that person will go beyond the call of duty to make that happen, because that person's motive is to help others, right? Motive is to show that kind of helping behavior towards the people, because that person can't help, because he is driven by that particular motive to help others, right? Similarly, different kind of the motives and the goals will excite people to indulge into different kind of behaviors and this thing. Now the discussion here is not on what is wrong or what is right. Discussion here is that different kind of motives, they actually channelize the efforts of people to work towards those motives and attain the goals which are more inclined towards the motives of these individuals. And this particular classification I have discussed in the context of the public bureaucracy, right? Now, because with this, because we discussed about the concept of motives, here comes the discussion on the very important aspect of the module, which is called as public service motivation. Now, why we are talking about public service motivation? See, we have talked about a lot of incentives, right? Values. We talked about this thing. When we talk about the working of people in the public sector organization, when the incentives are largely constrained, right, there is specific thing which require people to be attached or involved or attracted to the public services. So the researchers across the research in the varied field of researches, they were trying to find out what is that goes in the public sector organization in terms of motivation, if not incentives related aspects to it, right? So they say that this particular thing, motivation to serve public, which is what is the work that benefits the society, and the work that help others, what is that is required to have this kind of aspect in the people who are working in the public sector organization. So it says that it calls for a different kind of motivation, understanding and research, and hence the researchers working in the area, specifically motivation in the context of the public sector context, they actually coined the term as public service motivation. And if you look at the reference number 2 here, they are authority Perry and Wise. They are the ones who are very well known in the area of public service motivation, because they have done extensive work in order to define the measurement and related aspect to it, right? So please look into the reference of Perry and Wise, the motivational basis of public service, published in Public Administration Review. Now the question here is, because we are talking about something which is related to much more as a motivational aspect in the public sector organization, meaning public service motivation. So basically the idea here is, first of all, what is public service motivation, and if it is well defined, how one can measure public service motivation, and what is the impact of this measurement, what this public service motivation can do inside the organization for better outcomes for the public service delivery, public policy program and welfare of the community at large, right? Let us first of all, look at the aspect of what beyond the incentives can lead to the motivation among the public sector employees for the benefit of the society. Perry and Weiss, they define public service motivation as something that may be understood as an individual's predisposition to respond to motives grounded primarily or uniquely in public institutions and organizations. So remember, we talked about the motives in the previous slide. I've talked about motives. Somebody's motive is very clear, that that person wanted to contribute towards the public institutions and organizations, right? So this motivation, when public sector employees, they are working in the organization, they primarily derive this particular motivation from their association with public institution and organization. That's what they say, that their individual's predisposition to respond to. Predisposition, they are the one individual characteristics. They are grounded in the fact that they are to work, their motive is very, very clear, to work for the public sector organization. So their motive is deriving them to put in efforts. They derive lot of motivation and influence from this particular aspect of the motive, because we talked about this motive derive people. Motive derive or give the guidance or direction to the people how to channelize their efforts toward something, right? So that's what is the idea of public sector motivation in this context, right? So here also, if you look at Perry and Weiss, because there is an important term which is being used here, motives, and we have already discussed about the power. There is some kind of force within. Let's look at how Perry and Weiss talked about the motives in that particular context. So motives, according to Perry and Weiss, they are psychological deficiencies or need that individual feel some compulsion to eliminate. So something which is there, for example, my motive is to helping others. I am not getting that kind of chance to do that. So I am feeling that deficiency or a need that that deficiency I have to eliminate, because I have to work for that particular work there, right? So that's another important aspect that I am looking forward to when I I am trying to work for my motive, right? So this is something, a state of somebody's mind, where they feel that they have a motive, and if they don't get that kind of opportunity to do that, so they experience those kind of psychological deficiency or need, and of course that they want to they feel compulsion to eliminate, right? Now in the context of the motives, the categories that the authors talked about, three different kind of categories, and I will also talk about examples by Indian case studies to look into how these different motives are there. So first is the rational motive, and then the norm based motives, and the affective based motive that the authors talked about. Let's look at these motives one by one and see what they try to differentiate in terms of the motives which are present here. So if you look at the rational motives, they are largely focused on the actions by the people to gain much more individual utility, maximum individual utility. So these are the actions which are grounded in giving people a maximum individual utility, right? So maximum utilization, utility maximization in terms of their motive, rational motive, right? So how they will do, what are the things that the authors have mentioned, what are the things can be included? People derive lot of maximization, individual utility maximization, when they participate in the process of policy formulation, right? They derive lot of satisfaction when they are actively participating in the process of public policy formulation, right? Also because they participate in this aspect, they are very excited toward this particular act, right? This particular act of participation is very I would say exciting for them, and these people are considering that they are more attached to this thing, and they derive a lot of meaning out of it, right? Second is the rational motive is also to do with somebody's commitment somebody is committed to a specific public policy, the program, right? So once I discuss all these three, I will talk about the examples also within these categories. Then rational based motives also talked about somebody being advocate, somebody playing an advocate role for a special interest in relation to the public policy program, public policy or the program, right? Now if you look at this rational, the logic, in simple terms, they are the actions which are grounded for people who wanted to, these are actions of the people to increase their individual utility maximization as the authors defined, right? Next are the norm based motives. Now they say that these are the actions which basically leads to the efforts to conform to the norms. There's norms based, right? Norm based categories of the motive. These are the actions conform, the leads to the efforts to conform to the norms, right? Some of the things that they have mentioned for this thing, somebody desire, it is basically about actions which are related to the desire of some people to serve the public. People are more inclined towards the public interest and they have desire to do that, right? Also, loyalty is another important aspect which is being talked about here. Loyalty to the duty of what? Duty of the government, right? And of course to take care of the social equity aspect. So three important things. First is desire, your desire for to serving the public at large. Second is the loyalty towards some organization, your duty and the government. Third is the social equity, right? Now third is the affective category of motives. These are basically the behaviors which are grounded in the emotional responses, right? Talking about affective behavior grounded in the emotional responses, as the authors mentioned. I talk about the examples also, just give me a moment out there. So basically it's you say that you are committed to a program because you are personally very affectionate, or will say that you have very conviction that you want to be around that particular program because that program has a very social importance, right? You are very inclined towards that particular program. You are very inclined towards that particular policy because you believe that that particular program has a great social importance. For example, if your motives are something to do with education, right? You are very inclined towards some public policy program which is related to the education aspect of it. So you can simply say that this is the aspect which will excite you because you consider that that particular activity, that particular policy program is having much more of social importance, right? So these are some of the categories of the things which are mentioned by authors Perry and Wise in terms of the categorization of public service motivation. Let me talk about some example to also tell you about rational, norm based and affective based motives here. Inspiring story of a public servant, right? So here I have taken the help of a news item here, IAS Armstrong Palme success story, which is the item I've taken from the link here, Z News here, right? Let's look at the inspiring story and I will then link it to the aspect of category of motives which have been described by Perry and Weiss, right? So Armstrong Palme, an IAS officer popularly known as the Miracle Man. So what kind of work he is known for? Very popular in terms of people among people, connect to people really well. So he is well known for construction of a 100-kilometer road connecting the remote and underdeveloped area of Manipur to Nagaland and Assam, right? Now, what is more remarkable about the work of Armstrong Palme is about working within the resource constraint, right? So he consider the people, right? People who have lesser access to resources and people who are really at the I would say do not have resources in the sense that so ultimately what happened is Armstrong Palme was driven by the plight of people, and that he took it as a challenge that within resource constraint he wanted to do something for these people in the area in which he was working. So what happened is, without the support of much support from the government, he acquired the funds through crowdfunding, using social media and reaching out to people, various NGOs, and got the funds and make that happen, right? So this is basically, it can be only done when some people have passion for public service, right? And they wanted to bring change in people's life. So incentives only, if you look at, and we talked about this, incentives only cannot drive people to indulge into the effort which required you to go call beyond duty. This is basically something which is beyond duty. You are doing something for people because you connect with them. So in that case, if you look at, in this case, we can talk about this at length in terms of norm based category of motives. When we talk about the social equity, you actually focus on the activities which intend to enhance the well-being of people, and especially people who lack economic resources, right? So Armstrong Palme is a good example of the person who is driven by the norm based motive, right? Because social equity, you want to show to the people, because you have a motive, right, that you want to provide people access to the services efficiently and economically, of course, while taking care of the aspect of social equity. So to look into the people and what they want, what their needs are, you see that this particular aspect of making that road has helped people a lot, maybe in terms of going for employment, schools, access to healthcare. You see how it try to bring in lot of changes, right? Because you have desire to serve the public interest. You remember we talked about in terms of norm based, the motives. People have desire to serve public interest. So if you don't have that kind of norm based motive, you will not be able to reach that kind of a state where you want to go beyond the call of duty and help people, right? Another important example I would like to mention, which I have also talked about in the when I talked about the concept of motivation, is the example of Mr. Sudhanshu Mani, right? The man behind Vande Bharat. We talked about this, right? So Mr. Mani, he completely devoted himself to a project, and he delivered the the output, especially in lesser time. The kind of work that he done. So it was an opportunity for himself to fulfill his dream for making the world class train. So in that case, we can see that your commitment to a program, your commitment to some kind of work, because you are personally identified with that particular thing, right? So these are some of the motives which are important in terms of looking at some of the examples. There are many other examples also you find out. So I will suggest that depending upon the public service motivation discussion here, and depending upon the category of motive, the motives behind people's actions, I would suggest all of you to actually look for some other examples from the public sector organization, people who are into civil services, or people who working at the grassroots level, people working in NGOs, right? You please discuss their stories in the in the platform. You please keep writing and discuss their stories and share with each other in what category of rational, norm-based or effective motives they come, right? And what is that derive these people in terms of their public service motivation, right? So I hope this particular thing is clear to all of you in terms of what is public service motivation and what are the categories of the public service motivation, in terms of motives I'm talking about, right? So please refer to the work of Perry and Wise to get more understanding about these motives, and look for more example to be discussed on the platform, right? Okay, what about now the measurement? Can public service motivation be measured, right? In what sense we can measure the public service motivation? So Perry in 1996 has given provided a construct in the paper titled Measuring Public Service Motivation and Assessment of Construct Reliability and Validity, published in Journal of Public Administration Research and Theory. So this particular construct is, what is a construct? Construct is something which you use for the measurement of a concept. So if you say public service motivation is a concept, so this has to be, if it has to be measured, it has to be first of all converted into a form of a construct. So you need to use some kind of indicators which will actually calculate or I'll say in terms of quantifying or the numbers in terms of what is the level of public service motivation among people if you ask them to respond to that particular kind of survey, right? So this particular construct to measure public service motivation is a 40 item 6 dimensions, because there are 6 dimensions, one, attraction to policy making, commitment to public interest, social justice, civic duty, compassion and self-sacrifice. So these are the dimensions, and these dimensions are further measured by other indicators which I am going to tell you now. What is the meaning of these particular dimension and how it relate to the scoring of the public service motivation levels among the people, right? Now, if you look at the dimension, attraction to public policy making, attraction to policy making as a dimension, and if I really want to see that whether people have higher levels of attraction to policy making, so what we'll say is these are the people who will have higher level. They were of the belief that the public officials who can turn a good idea into a policy, right? So people who are higher on this dimension, so they will come across as people who will respect the public officials who are known for who can turn a good idea into the policy, right? So attraction to public policy making, right? Second is about commitment to public interest. So people who are actually higher on commitment to public interest, what are their the thought processes, perception? So these people feel that meaningful public service is very important to these people, right? Because they are very committed to the public interest. So meaningful public service is important to this category of people, right? Then these people also want to contribute towards the community without any kind of self-interest, right? So these are the people, because they are having higher level of commitment to public interest, so they want to contribute towards the society, towards the community without any kind of self-interest. So I'm talking about people with the higher level, the perception. These people who have higher PSM, they will come across as these people who will have these kind of the perceptions, right? Or at least these people, they stand by for these kind of values, right? Then comes the social justice as a dimension of public service motivation. So these are the people who believe that many of the public policy causes, they are actually worth, right? And also they are the people who are actually willing to use their energy to do good for the society at large, right? So these are the I will say the behavioral indicators or the value system of this employee who will have a higher level among these dimensions. Then if you look at the aspect of civic duty in terms of public service motivation, so if people have higher levels of civic duty, so what happen is they are strong believer that the public service is the highest form, if in terms of a level, if really citizens want to contribute towards the society. So if they want to do public service, they would be actually considering that the higher level of work that a citizen can do for a country, right? Also, civic duty is to do with people who have a belief that they have to do something for people who are not well off, right? Armstrong Palmer's story we have discussed here, right? Because of social equity, people having no resources, lack of economic resources, and considering it as a part of civic duty, that a firm believer of that somebody is obligated to do some kind of work for the people who are not well off, who don't have economic resources to do that. So that is the part of the civic duty. Then comes the compassion, somebody who is much more compassionate towards the work, right? It says that these people are the strong believer. They are the people who believe that seeing the welfare for others is important for them. It is the act of as the authors mentioned, is the act of much more patriotism, right? When you seeing the welfare of other people, you derive lot of meaning, and then it is something which is more of the feeling of patriotic behavior in the people, right? And then last is self-sacrifice. These are the people, you will see that these are the people who are the firm believer or firm believe that they are prepared to take in to put in the efforts and can also make sacrifices for doing good for or welfare of the community. And also these are the people who believe that they are duty is important for them than the self or the self interest, right? So these are some of the indicators. I'm just giving some of the behavior indicators for by taking some examples from the instrument of Perry. But there are other indicators also, because as we said, the 40 items, right? A lot of behavior indicators are being given. Some of the proxy indicators are given. Now, people, when they respond to this thing, what they feel about these kind of behaviors, they will give you the rating. In the end, the scores can be calculated, for what people think about, what people have in terms of public service motivation as far as levels, are concerned, right? Let's quickly look into the propositions which are proposed in the research of Perry and Weiss in terms of public service motivation, what it can do. So according to the authors, if people have higher level of PSM, what will happen? What is the use of this information? So it says that individuals who have higher levels of public service motivation, with the scoring that we have just talked about, they have more inclination to join the public organizations, right? Also, they say that if people have higher level of public service motivation or they have inclination towards this thing, their performance in the organization would also be very, very high. Their individual performance is positively linked with the higher levels of public service motivation, right? Also, when people have higher levels of PSM, the organizations, especially public organization, they need not to rely on the extrinsic rewards to manage the individual performance, because people who are having higher level of public service motivation, they are not looking for the extrinsic rewards to go beyond the call of duty, right? Because they are compassionate, they are attracted to policy making, right? They have a sense of civic duty, so they don't need these kind of different kind of extrinsic rewards to motivate them to do the public service, right? So this is about the the conceptualization of public service motivation. And of course, the measurement. So I will stop here. I will continue with the public service motivation application in the organization, that how one can integrate these concepts in the organization, and then I will continue with the important work related attitudes, and then we will conclude discussion on positive organizational behavior and striving and thriving in the public sector.